Alright, so I just finished watching episode 10 of Dragon Ball GT, and it was an episode of Dragon Ball GT. Basically, my major complaint, I'll just get right into it. My major complaint from the end of the last episode was that I had a difficult time believing that these giant worms would pose any threat to Goku, Trunks, and Pan. Especially with like them being able to deflect ki blasts and absorb punches and stuff. And here, the worms are defeated very easily, but it was in a very weird, nonsensical way to me. So basically, what happens is that Goku picks up one of the worms and throws it into the wall, and like they basically defeat the giant worms by throwing them around, tying them up, having them be buried under rubble, etc. And I have a very difficult time believing that throwing a worm against the wall of the cave and having some rocks fall on it would do more damage than a ki blast or a punch from these characters. And so it's like, based on everything we've seen in the past two series, like it feels like they defeated them in like the things which should be doing less damage do more damage, and the things that should be doing more damage do less damage, and it's very nonsensical to me, I suppose. And then we have the Para brothers, who, if I can imagine, if someone has only seen GT, I mean, not GT, if someone has only seen Z, then I can imagine someone really despising this. But basically, the Para brothers are a clever idea. I'm gonna give them that. They are a very clever idea for what they can do. Basically, what they do is they hypnotize you into dancing, and they dance you to exhaustion. And I thought this was a very clever way of having less powerful characters combat our main characters while not making it a direct fight. Because if it was a direct fight, we wouldn't even like believe it, you know what I mean? But the thing where they take it a bit too far, I think, is once they get a bit exhausted, the Para brothers begin beating them up a little. And even with exhaustion, I find it hard to believe that like these characters would really take much damage from the Para brothers. And to be fair, it's not like they're shown to take a ton of damage, but it is shown to affect them. And so I really wish they had just left it as they hypnotize you into dancing and you just dance yourself to exhaustion. I think that would have been a much more clever way to do it without introducing any sort of combat. And basically they don't get out of it until like the worms get annoyed and come attacking the Para brothers. But there is one scene I want to mention in this episode which did feel like a filler scene to me, which was when we went back to that cult on that planet that the Para brothers were working on. And basically it was a scene where like it was the exact same like establishing shots and everything, and basically they turned some more people into dolls, and we really didn't learn anything new. It was just a very weird like cutaway. It didn't really serve any purpose in the episode other than to establish that there are people who oppose this cult, I guess, but we really didn't learn much. And then the crowd praying is shocked to see these people turned into dolls, but surely this would be a common occurrence. This is the second time it's happened in like a day. You know what I mean? But so yeah, that's one thing where I'm like, beginning to feel like I can be more lenient on filler scenes if I'm watching Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, but with this show, because there is no manga, I'm just like, why is this scene here? Why didn't you just plan out and structure the episodes so that you would have, like, you know what I mean? Because when you're adapting it, I can be like, okay, well, I can understand you need to stretch out things, you need to, put in filler scenes, etc. But with this, because it's just a pure show that they're planning, I'm like, why don't you plan things out better and structure things better so that we don't have any scenes that feel like filler? But like, to be fair, I don't feel like there's tons of filler in this show. It's not like I'm coming across every single episode and going like, filler, filler, filler. That's not what I feel like. It's just I feel like when I do come across scenes that feel more blatantly like filler, then I'm more harsh on them. But yeah, so that's all I have to say. I didn't mind this episode. I just really didn't like I suppose the power scaling was out of whack and a bit nonsensical. I don't the Power brothers have not won me over. Like, the Pilaf gang won me over, like, when I first saw them, but the Power gang is not winning me over at all. They just don't have much personality. It's the sort of thing where it's like the dancing, they're trying to be quirky and funny like Toriyama, but it lacks that real style and humor that he had. It's like they're trying, but they're not getting there. But what I will say is that, again, I said this earlier, but it was clever to have the Power Brothers not be a direct fighters, because no one would believe these characters would have, stood a chance against Goku and the gang. But yeah, after this episode, like, I don't want to be a GT defender, because that would just be really difficult. You know what I mean? Like, and from these reviews, I think you can tell I'm definitely anything, but I don't think you could call me a GT defender at this point. But I can understand, because there are a lot of people who have not watched Dragon Ball and have only seen Dragon Ball Z. And I can understand, like, even if we ignore the Goku being turned into a kid thing, which I think everyone agrees was a really bad idea, even if we ignore that, I can imagine just someone watching Dragon Ball Z and then going into GT going, okay, this is the sequel to Z, and not knowing what they're trying to do. They're not succeeding, but they're trying. What they were trying to do in sort of recapturing the magic of Dragon Ball, and like someone going in expecting like a sequel to Z or a continuation of Z, and getting stuff like this with the Power Brothers dancing and that whole wedding episode and all that, and like being immensely disappointed and frustrated and confused and just writing the whole show off, basically. That's not hard for me to imagine, and I can see why a lot of people are why GT very quickly gained the reputation that it did, basically. Not to imply that this is good. I'm not going that far. But basically, like, because there are people who only like Z, and even though Dragon Ball is really, really good, again, if you've watched this series of reviews, you know I love the original Dragon Ball. But there are people who just don't give it a shot because they watch the Pilaf arc, like a few episodes of it, and they're like, oh, it's all goofy comedy, blah, 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 blah. And they don't even bother to get to like the Tenkaichi Budokai or the Red Ribbon Army or Piccolo Daimao or anything like that, and they really miss out on a great show. And they just, like, they don't like the comedic, more story, well, I shouldn't say more story driven, but like the more comedy driven aspects, the more sort of martial arts, low scale combat and stuff like that. And so I can see that, like, this show is trying to bring it back to, like, trying to go back to the more episodic, more like earlier adventure type stuff of the Pilaf arc. But I know that, like, not everyone is even gonna get, like, people probably went into this like not even knowing what they were trying to do, and just like like Like, they just went, why, basically? Why would you do this? Why would you massacre my boy? But I feel conflicted because I know the position these writers are in. I know that it's not an easy prospect continuing Dragon Ball. I know that I can see what they were trying to do, but at the same time, doing stuff like, I've said this before, but it's like watching Dragon Ball without the humor of Akira Toriyama. And I said in the first episode that I can see why they wouldn't want to try and copy Toriyama exactly, but this episode, the Power Brothers, they really, really felt like they were trying to capture Toriyama's humor, and they didn't. They did not. And I don't want to imply that it's some miserable, horrible thing, but it wasn't it just wasn't funny. It just wasn't entertaining. It dragged on for way too long. Okay, like, this is the sort of thing where it'd be funny for like a minute or two, but it just went on and on and on, and they cut away and cut back, and cut away and cut back, and it was like, okay, guys, let's wrap this up, please. Like, you didn't need to make it go on for this long, but they made it go on for a while. But the cliffhanger for this episode is that Pan and Gil have been sent off to Planet Lude, which is where the cult is. And that's such a... I can't take that name seriously, because, like, even though it's spelled differently, I can't help but think of the word lewd, and I'm like, oh, scandalous. But we'll see what happens. Even though Pan's pretty weak, I don't think she'll encounter, like, these characters' problems could be solved so easily by just punching everyone. It's Dragon Ball, so I don't know what I expect, but again, like, that just brings me back to, like, those worms. Like, they were more of a challenge than they should have been. They were clearly just like, oh, we need a cliffhanger, oh, we need them to defeat them, and it wasn't as well thought out or anything. Again, something I noticed, though, they are really restrained in their use of the Super Saiyan, because even when fighting these worms, Goku did not go Super Saiyan. And so I really find that interesting. I really find the contrast between how Super Saiyan is used in GT and how Super Saiyan is used in Super. I find that very interesting, how, like, with GT, they're like, okay, we gotta use Super Saiyan as minimally as possible. And with Super, they're, like, busting out Super Saiyan. They're busting out Super Saiyan Blue all the time. And I find it really interesting, the difference in sort of the philosophy, I suppose. I mean, I don't know. This could change. But just, like, here we are 10 episodes into the series, and, like, they've only used Super Saiyan once, I think, actually. But again, I've said this before. It's good that they are very restrained with the Super Saiyan, because that would imply Goku's having a lot of challenges and he needs to go Super Saiyan. And here, with these worms, while they were challenging to our characters, at least it wasn't like a Super Saiyan level thing that they needed to go. You know what I mean? That would have been really ridiculous. But yeah, that's all I have to say for now. I think that about wraps up my thoughts for this episode. Excuse me. I don't burp often, but sometimes I do. I apologize, audience. But yeah, I think Pan is probably going to encounter some difficulties on Planet Lude. I think, obviously Goku and Trunks are going to go to Planet Lude. I think they're going to bring along the Power Brothers, and there's going to be some hijinks while they're flying there in the spaceship. Or maybe they'll just leave the Power Brothers, like, stranded on this one asteroid. That'd be too cruel, though, for these characters. They're softies. But yeah, that's all I have to say for now, and see you next time.